This story, titled "My Cousin Moved into My Vacation Home Without Permission and Trashed It, so I Took Legal Action and Made Her Pay," is one of the wildest things I've ever experienced. And trust me, it's a tale you don't want to miss. My name is Rachel. I'm 29 years old, and I live in a small but beautiful town in the United States. I own a cozy little vacation home about 2 hours from where I live. It's my sanctuary, nestled in a quiet, picturesque area surrounded by lush greenery and a sparkling lake. It took me years of saving to afford this place, and I poured my heart into decorating it. It wasn't extravagant, but it was mine, a safe haven to escape the stresses of daily life. But little did I know, my cherished retreat would become the epicenter of a family drama I never saw coming. It all started when my cousin Stephanie showed up uninvited at my doorstep one day. Stephanie and I had never been particularly close. She was that relative who always seemed to stir up trouble at family gatherings, demanding attention, starting petty arguments, and somehow always leaving a trail of chaos in her wake. That day, she looked more frazzled than usual. She claimed she was in a tough spot, that she'd just broken up with her boyfriend, and that she needed a place to stay for a few weeks to get back on her feet. "I'm desperate, Rachel," she said, her eyes wide and pleading. "I don't have anywhere else to go. Please, just for a little while." I hesitated. I wasn't thrilled about the idea of having her crash at my place, but I also didn't want to turn her away when she seemed so vulnerable. So, I reluctantly agreed, with the understanding that it was temporary and that she'd follow my house rules. For the first few days, Stephanie was on her best behavior. She kept to herself, cleaned up after herself, and even cooked dinner one night. But it didn't take long for her true colors to show. She started coming home late, leaving a mess in the kitchen, and inviting her friends over without asking. I tried to be patient. I reminded her that this was my home and that I expected her to respect it. She apologized, but her behavior didn't change. I was already counting down the days until she moved out. Then, one weekend, I decided to visit my vacation home for some much-needed relaxation. As I pulled into the driveway, my heart sank. There was an unfamiliar car parked outside, and the front door was slightly ajar. My mind raced. Did I forget to lock the door last time? Was someone breaking in? I cautiously stepped inside, only to be met with a scene that made my stomach churn. The place was a disaster. Empty pizza boxes and beer bottles littered the living room. My once pristine couch was stained, and there were muddy footprints on the hardwood floor. In the kitchen, the sink was piled high with dirty dishes, and the fridge door was hanging open. I was furious. This wasn't just a mess. It was complete disrespect for something I had worked so hard to create. And then it hit me. Whoever was responsible for this had been living here. To my horror, I found Stephanie's belongings scattered throughout the house. Clothes were draped over furniture, her shoes were kicked off in the hallway, and her toiletries were on the bathroom counter. She had moved in without my knowledge or permission. I immediately called her. "Stephanie, what the hell is going on? Why are your things in my vacation home?" There was a long pause before she finally responded. "I didn't think it was a big deal. You're never there, and I needed a place to stay." Her nonchalant tone made my blood boil. "Not a big deal? Stephanie, this is trespassing. You had no right to do this." "I was going to tell you eventually," she said defensively. "Besides, it's family. You should be helping me." I couldn't believe her audacity. She had not only violated my trust, but also completely trashed the one place I went to for peace and quiet. I couldn't even begin to process the mix of emotions I felt. Anger, betrayal, and disbelief all rolled into one. Stephanie didn't just cross a line. She bulldozed right over it without a second thought. I hung up the phone, too furious to even argue further, and decided to stay the night at the vacation home to assess the damage. As I walked from room to room, I discovered more evidence of Stephanie's complete disregard for my property. My guest bedroom, where she had apparently been staying, was an absolute mess. Dirty laundry was scattered everywhere. The bed linens were stained, and the closet doors were left open with random items thrown about. My once serene sanctuary felt unrecognizable. The bathroom was no better. Makeup smudges covered the counter, and half-used bottles of shampoo and conditioner were strewn across the shower. But what really sent me over the edge was finding one of my decorative vases smashed on the floor in the living room. It was an heirloom from my grandmother, something irreplaceable. I couldn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, replaying the situation in my head. How could Stephanie think this was okay? And how could I make her understand the gravity of what she had done? The next morning, I called her again. This time, I didn't hold back. Stephanie, you've completely destroyed my vacation home. This isn't just about you moving in without permission. You've disrespected me, my property, and everything I've worked for. She sighed dramatically, as though I was the one overreacting. It's not that bad, Rachel. I was going to clean up, and I didn't think you'd even notice. Not that bad? I snapped. Stephanie, you broke one of my grandmother's vases. That's not something you can just replace. Her tone shifted, defensive and dismissive. Look, I didn't mean for it to break. Things happen, okay? You're being way too sensitive about this. I couldn't believe her complete lack of remorse. It was clear that reasoning with her wasn't going to get me anywhere. I told her to come over immediately to start cleaning up and to take her things. She reluctantly agreed, but didn't show up until late in the afternoon, hours after she had promised. When she finally arrived, she didn't even apologize. She walked in, looked around, and shrugged. I'll grab my stuff and go, she said, as though she was doing me a favor. I watched in silence as she half-heartedly packed her belongings, leaving behind even more of a mess in the process. I wanted to yell, to scream, to tell her exactly how hurt I was, but I bit my tongue. I knew there was no point. Stephanie wasn't going to take responsibility, and arguing with her would only escalate things further. After she left, I took a deep breath and surveyed the damage once again. There was no way I could clean this up on my own, so I called a professional cleaning service. When they arrived, even the cleaners were shocked by the state of the house. It took hours to get everything back to normal, and the bill was staggering. But the damage wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. This was supposed to be my safe space, the one place where I could escape the chaos of everyday life. Now, it felt tainted, and the thought of spending time there brought me more stress than comfort. I knew I couldn't let this slide. Stephanie needed to be held accountable, not just for the damage she caused, but for the blatant disrespect she showed me. I called a lawyer to discuss my options, and they confirmed what I already suspected. Stephanie had trespassed on my property and could be held liable for the damages. Filing a lawsuit against family felt extreme, but I realized I had no other choice. If I didn't take a stand, Stephanie would continue to act without consequences, and I wasn't willing to let that happen. When I told her I was taking legal action, she laughed. You're seriously suing me? Over what, some pizza boxes and a broken vase? Her response only fueled my determination. No, Stephanie, I said firmly. I'm suing you for trespassing, for damaging my property, and for completely violating my trust. This isn't a joke, and I'm not backing down. Stephanie didn't take me seriously at first. She thought this was just another family spat that would eventually blow over. But she underestimated me. I wasn't the same pushover she had manipulated in the past. This time I was done playing nice. I filed the lawsuit, and the process began. I had documented everything. The state of the house, the cleaning bills, the broken vase, and every text message between us. My lawyer was confident we had a solid case, and honestly, I felt a sense of empowerment I hadn't expected. Standing up for myself felt long overdue, even if it was against a family member. When Stephanie received the official court notice, her reaction shifted from dismissive to panicked. She called me, her voice dripping with faux sincerity. Rachel, can't we just work this out between us? We're family, after all. Do you really want to drag this into court? I could hear the desperation in her voice, but I wasn't falling for it. Stephanie, I gave you multiple chances to make this right, and you didn't take any of them. This isn't about family. It's about accountability. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying things like, I didn't have anywhere else to go, and you're really going to ruin my life over this? But I stayed firm. You ruined this for yourself, Stephanie. Actions have consequences, and you need to learn that. As the court date approached, word of our family drama started spreading among relatives. Some sided with me, saying Stephanie's behavior was completely out of line, while others tried to play peacemaker, urging me to drop the lawsuit for the sake of keeping the family together. One of my aunts called me, practically begging me to reconsider. Rachel, she's your cousin. Don't you think this is a bit extreme? Family is supposed to forgive. But I couldn't let guilt sway me. I had spent too many sleepless nights cleaning up Stephanie's messes, both figuratively and literally. This time, I wasn't going to sweep it under the rug. In court, Stephanie's attitude shifted again. She played the victim, tearfully explaining how hard things had been for her and how she never meant to cause harm. She claimed she thought I wouldn't mind her staying at the vacation home and insisted the damages were unintentional. But my lawyer dismantled her excuses with the cold, hard facts. Photos of the trashed house, receipts for the cleaning service, and records of her texts blatantly disregarding my requests were all presented as evidence. The judge didn't buy her sob story. In the end, Stephanie was held liable for trespassing and ordered to pay restitution for the damages she caused. The amount wasn't astronomical, but it was enough to make a dent in her finances, and hopefully her ego. Stephanie was furious. She stormed out of the courtroom without so much as a glance in my direction. But I didn't feel guilty. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of closure. After the lawsuit, Stephanie stopped speaking to me entirely, which was honestly a relief. The family drama eventually died down, and I made it clear to everyone that I wasn't tolerating any more manipulation or disrespect, family or not. With the money I won in court, I was able to repair the damage to my vacation home and even upgrade some of the furniture Stephanie had ruined. Slowly but surely, the house began to feel like my sanctuary again. To this day, I don't regret taking legal action. It was a difficult decision, but it taught me an invaluable lesson about standing up for myself and setting boundaries. And if there's one piece of advice I'd give after this experience, it's this. Don't let anyone, even family, take advantage of you. Know your worth, and don't be afraid to fight for it. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Until next time.